Hello everybody, this is Chief Meteorologist Andrew Pinero, outside in the environment on this beautiful Earth Day. So let's talk a little bit about my connection to Earth Day, how I got really involved with it, and really what inspired me to become a meteorologist. So maybe it'll inspire you one day. So let's talk all about that, my connection to Earth Day, in this Earth Day Special 2025. So first, before I talk about that, let's get into the quick difference between weather and climate. I am a meteorologist, not a climatologist. They're related sciences, but they're not exactly the same. So weather is the day-to-day short-range forecasting of what's happening out there right now. So usually this is sort of something that you would see 15 days at most out. Typically on the news, in the evening news or the noon news, you would see maybe up to 7 days. Sometimes you get a 10-day forecast. So that's weather, forecasting in the short term. This is where it can vary quite a bit. Thus, in the spring right now, the roller coastering of temperatures and weather conditions that we see, where last week we had frost advisories and turning into 80-degree weather on the weekend, and then back into the 60s and 70s today. So that roller coastering, that's weather. So what is climate? This is the thing that is very hotly debated. I don't know why, but essentially climate is beyond the 15-day forecast. This goes into 6 months at the minimum to decades and centuries. You may hear the term every so often, 500-year storm, 1,000-year storm. That's where the forecast for the climate comes from. Now, climate is a changing environment. See what I did there? So, climate change itself, it's not to be debated. This is my personal opinion. Climate change itself is a natural part of the environment and of the earth. We have warmer periods and we have colder periods. The only thing I would say that is allowed to be debated is whether humans are part of the climate change and enhancing the climate change. I did studies on this in college and I have a thesis on this, that it looks like with some of my preliminary research, yes, there is an influence on human behavior and the climate. So again, climate are these longer term periods. So in the terms of the earth, if we're talking centuries to 1,000 years, things move very slowly, much more slowly than the average lifespan of a human. So when we see maybe 1 degree increase in the course of 5 years, that could be big when we expand it out to be 500 years. So that's the idea for climate. So now let's talk a little bit about how I got started with weather and climate. So when I was very young, the very first thing that got me into any kind of weather were thunderstorms. And thunderstorms can be what sets a lot of people down the path of weather. So for me, as a very young kid, 2, 3 years old, I was afraid of thunderstorms. I was afraid of the lightning getting through the window and trying to get me. So from a very young age, that's when I started to learn a little bit more about how thunderstorms worked. That's what sparked, pun intended with lightning, the journey into weather. But what really got me into, I feel like I want to do this as a career, that was the blizzard of 1996. I remember this blizzard because one huge thing with it, from my perspective, I was 5 years old in 1996 at that point. The snow we got from the blizzard was taller than me. I was running underneath the snow, and the snow mounds were bigger than me. That got me fascinated. And also, shout out to Jim Cantori, who was one of my early meteorology idols from the Weather Channel. He is the one that really stuck to the broadcasting of it, and that's where I also combined the thunderstorms with snow to get thunder snow, which is a rare phenomenon, but it has happened. And Jim Cantori has some of the best reactions to thunder snow out there. So that's what really got me into weather as a career path. And I followed that all the way through high school. One of my chemistry professors, he was actually a storm chaser, and we really clicked and got to talk a lot about thunderstorms and tornadoes and how they form. And then I got to college. I got to learn hands-on from professional meteorologists, both in the studio and in the field. So that is what led me to get my Bachelor of Science degree in meteorology. And from there, I was on television in the New York City area with Fios 1 News. I was on television for about 5 years, so I went full from 5 years old to about 30 years old, following my career path, and that was really fun. So now in my mid-30s, as you see on YouTube now, I am independent, and that is the next point with YouTube that I'm going to try and develop a little bit more. All right, so that's my connection with weather and climate and how I really got into it. So this gives me a very unique perspective on climate. So getting hands-on with forecasting the weather, learning the physics and the mathematics and the chemistry of the atmosphere and how it interacts with the surface of the earth, with the oceans. That gives me, I feel like, a very unique perspective to talk about climate change. And there's also somebody that said something very interesting recently that I was kind of like, wow, this is like a way to shift your perspective on climate change. If you really don't know too much about it, or you're just not sure at all what's going on out there. This was Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. And what he said was, forget about how you think climate change is or if it's real or not. How are you changing your climate? So that's what I want to break down a little bit here is how are you right there, the viewer, how are you changing your climate? So think about it. We're just coming out of winter. It was cold. It wasn't vastly snowy, but there was a decent amount of time where we got an inch or two of snow. A couple days later, it went away. Then the next week, another couple inches of snow, and then it went away. And then we had a decent, a moderate storm where we had about 6 to 8 inches of snow. So we had quite a bit of that throughout the tri-state region. And how are you changing your climate in that situation? Example, it snows. You want to clear your driveway or clear your sidewalks. You take a bag of salt. You spread salt on the road. You just changed your climate by doing that. Because normally, where that snow was, if a human did not interfere, that snow would still be there. That ice would still be there. The act of you spreading the salt on your sidewalk changes your climate. So then it changes the salinity of the snow, thus what makes it melt, but also that salt still has to go somewhere. It gets absorbed into the dirt, so that changes the salinity of the dirt and the soil around you. And that changes what could grow over the climate time frame, which could be decades to centuries. That changes the soil and the plants that grow there. Thus, you changed your climate by throwing salt on the sidewalk to clear some snow. Bigger example, New York City. New York City itself has a lot of water. And with a lot of water, there has to be a way to get the water out. Hurricane Sandy brought a lot of water into the New York City area, and water filled the Lincoln Tunnel, and it filled all these underground tunnels. Now there are giant storm doors that will close whenever there's a big storm coming, and that, yes, will divert traffic so you can't use the tunnels, but also prevents the water from naturally going where it wanted to go. New York City changed their climate. One last example for you, Las Vegas, Sin City. It's a desert. There should not be a city in Las Vegas. We have to put water where there is not water. Normally, if there were no humans there, then there would be a dry desert environment, but to make it a beautiful, lush environment that has golf courses too. Golf courses in the middle of a desert. You got to move water into that area versus like New York City, you have to move water out of the area. So that's how they change their climate. So just think about that little shift in perspective. It's not a matter of if climate change is happening or not. How are you changing your climate? Now with that in mind, I'm going to talk about something very simple that I do, and it's just little things here and there that can help in the long run. And it's something that you may also feel inspired to do as well. The 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. Those 3 simple things can help change your environment back a little bit, or at least try and save it from other things that happen. So for instance, in that example, you throw salt to melt. Well, maybe instead of throwing salt to melt, you wait till the next day where the sun will heat up the environment naturally and maybe melt the ice. If you need to get that salt going, then that's fine, but you got to take into perspective other things to do, thus the reduce, reuse, recycle. So that's where, instead of throwing a can of soda away, look for a recycling receptacle and put it in. Just like back here, composting. Getting rid of any spent leaves from the fall that instead of just you would throw out, put them in a composter. You can create your own soil. You don't have to buy topsoil. Reduce, reuse, recycle can actually save you money if you do it correctly. So creating your own compost, you don't have to buy your own your own soils, and then you can reuse that to plant more vegetables or anything that you want in a little garden. So those are little things that you can do to try and counteract. Now, what I'm doing is also a big part of this channel. Thus the title of the channel, Electrified Weatherman. I have been documenting my switch to all EVs. So it started going from my 2017 WRX, which was a sporty little car, 6-speed manual. I still have videos on there from like how to drive manual. That's still a very popular series I have. But going from there to a Tesla Model 3. And then just last year, from a Tesla Model 3 to a Tesla Model Y. And even before that, in between, the shirt I'm wearing right now, Harley Davidson had introduced their own electric motorcycle, which is also still a very niche circle there, but still, I have an electric motorcycle and an electric car. I am all EV, and it is something to consider if you can. It's not something that is necessary for everybody right now, but just little things. Again, going back to that reduce, reuse, recycle. Just those little things can really help in the grand scheme of climate timeframes, which we're talking decades to centuries. So just those little things, again, can really help. All right, so I hope that was an interesting perspective to share, and just some very simple tips on how you can help the environment. Because it doesn't just take an individual, it takes everybody. And any little bit that you can help, it does help. Again, in that long run, with the lifespan of climate, or the time frame of climate, which is in that decades to centuries range, which will far outlive you and me. All right, so I am taking my last little bit here in the last part of climate change chat, or climate matters, or however you want to think about this, but it's really just, the environment's beautiful. Sitting on a little bench, out in the greenery, in the environment, especially on a nice day. It's 77 degrees outside where I am right now. It's gorgeous. Let's try and hold on to this, because if we don't do anything to stop climate change, or stop you from changing your climate in a negative way without positively impacting it, these greeneries are going to go away. We're seeing islands disappear. We're seeing more extremes in weather. Just this example of this past winter, we're seeing more extremes in weather, or just the past couple of weeks, where we're going from the 80s to the 40s to the 60s to the 50s. Just that, the normal spring-like roller coaster of temperature is just becoming a bit more extreme. We're seeing stronger hurricanes, just in the past few years, we had the strongest hurricane in the Atlantic basin ever on record. And the extremes that we see in climate are going to keep getting worse if we don't do anything now. So that's my last little bit there. I don't want to have any kind of a political discussion on this in the comments, but feel free in the comments below to talk about your thoughts on this video. If this idea of how you're changing your climate changes your perspective at all, feel free again to put those in the comments below. So I'm gonna enjoy the rest of this beautiful afternoon visiting family right now, so I'm gonna go enjoy that. This is Chief Meteorologist Andrew Pinero. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you all in the next video.